You never get away with that now. I mean, straight away, some bloody snowflake, some livid individual would want to label it bullying, wouldn't they? Breakfast there at the Yorkshire Cycle Hub. What a beautiful part of the world if you're in this neck of the woods. Get yourself up to Helmsley, basically, Kirby Moorside, from Kirby Moorside up to Hutton Le Hole, up to Blakey Ridge, then just after you pass the Lion Pub on the left at Blakey Ridge, you take a right turn, and then a left turn, and then you end up down here. Oh! And it is stunning. I won't want to be up here in winter, but in the middle of June it is absolutely glorious. And I've said before and I'll say it again, these are almost like set pieces. Riding bikes like this in countryside like this, you could be all the way back in the 60s without too much of a stretch of the imagination at all. Wonderful. Sorry if that was a bit dark, I've got an ND filter on. That's how you get the best out of these action cameras, particularly the GoPros. Put a good quality ND filter on, and particularly with the GoPro Hero 13, provided you buy the GoPro genuine neutral density filters, the camera recognises which filter you've got on and adjusts accordingly. But I have this camera, the GoPro, I have on manual settings, which I've managed to tweak over the years, and the camera facing me back there, Insta368 Pro 2, I leave on automatic because I don't need things like motion blur on that camera. But so that you can more realistically experience vicariously these rides out, I have custom settings on the GoPro to make it as natural as possible. Oh, things I do for thee folk. So how exciting, we're going to see the sea. Back there over breakfast I was telling an old copper's tale to Andy. I think sometimes he glazes over and I start worrying that it might be 10th time that I've told him certain tale, but sure sign of senility, isn't it? Repetition. Anyway, I don't think I've told this one before, certainly not on the channel, but back in the early years when I were a PC at Bradford, I had a really outstandingly good sergeant that took me under his wing, took a bit of a shine to me because I was doing really well with my exams. I was constantly coming top of my law exams, and he'd been recently promoted from a PC on the traffic division to a sergeant on patrol at Bradford City Centre. Fantastic fella, an absolute god as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely made me. I'd never have survived without his sponsorship, I suppose, shall we call it. Yeah, he was as good a mentor as you're going to get. Anyway, yeah, so he was the sergeant on the team back then. He took a shine to me, but he took exactly the opposite of a shine to this particular other PC. and this particular other PC, for different reasons, and managed to get through his probation when probably he shouldn't have done, due to complete incompetence. Which is why I'm A, not mentioning any names, and B, not given anything like sufficient detail to be able to identify this person from 40 years ago. So anyway, this is an example because the conversation began when we were talking about the road closures, because we've encountered a few road closures today, and when you look at why the road's closed, you can see no obvious reason for it. It's unnecessary, total overkill. You know, road completely closed, diversions everywhere, and actually they're only working on one half of the road, so temporary lights would have been fine, but no, bollocks to it, shut the road. And what I was saying to Andy is because obviously I've worked in big public sector organisations all my life, and I've come across this attitude amongst some people, too many people sometimes, that get pissed with power and they find themselves elevated to a position for whatever reason where they have a fair degree of executive capacity and they can make decisions, and in local authorities, councils, it's probably the worst place that I've ever come across it. I'm not saying it never happened in the police, but the thing with the police is you've got power. You know, you don't have to flex your muscles. You're given warranted powers because you're a crown servant. You're not an employee, you're a crown servant. Totally different thing. You hold office, not employment. Whereas in council, you're just employed by the council, aren't you? And that's that. So what you tend to get is people find themselves, for whatever reason, elevated, usually way beyond their abilities, to a certain position, and they can make quite significant decisions which impact upon the everyday lives of the public in that particular council area. So I spent 12 months working for a big metropolitan district council after I'd retired from the cops. And I did notice that there are people in some fairly lofty positions which certainly caused me to raise an eyebrow, particularly given some of the publicly funded salaries these people were on, you know. And I'm thinking, is this the best we can do? And of course within the highways department you have these people, and you have people who are empowered to make decisions about road closures, and a lot of the time they're totally over pissed on health and safety, and that's usually the agenda that their decision making is piggybacked on. But a lot of times what you'll get with road closures, I'm absolutely convinced, is just a case of these decision makers, some talentless individual in an office somewhere. I'm not saying they're all talentless, but I think a lot of the time what you get is these mediocre people in positions of power that will say stuff like, oh, bollocks to it, just shut the road, just close it completely, bollocks to it, rather than, you know, let's have a proper site assessment here, can we strike a balance between the safety of contractors and the throughput of traffic, you know, because it requires a bit of work and mental application, a bit of planning does that, doesn't it? But I'm convinced some of these people think, oh, bollocks for that, can't be bothered, stuff it, close the road, sod 'em, doesn't matter, close the road for a week, who cares? Of course pisses everybody else off. So that's the conversation we were having, and I sort of got to talking about my experiences in big organisations where if somebody decides that you're persona non grata because you speak truth to power, and I know I've mentioned this before, then you find yourself under cudgel in short order. Oh, look at that, what a thoroughly idyllic British scene, eh? Yeah, you find yourself under cudgel, find yourself getting kneecapped pretty quickly. and I've seen that operate in both the police and in the local authority, because not only did I work for the local authority for 12 months after I retired, but I was also seconded to another big local authority while I was a serving inspector in the force. And yeah, from time to time you'll find somebody falls out of favour, and then there's a concerted campaign by whichever senior person they've pissed off most to hound them out. Either get them transferred, disciplined, oofed out, or generally make the position untenable. That's what happens. 9 times out of 10 it works. But in relation to this particular PC, back in the early 80s, who basically, ultimately I would have to say, got what were coming to him. There's no two ways about it. I think even he would have to admit that he couldn't cut the mustard. Coppering's not a job for everybody. Certainly frontline policing in big inner city areas, it's not for everybody, and most people are not cut out for it, and clearly this fellow were not cut out for it. But on this, but for whatever reason, this sergeant that thought the sun shone out of my arse equally thought that this particular individual, nothing but black outer space could be found hanging out of his arse. He could not be doing with him. But I think it became almost pathological. So set his stall out really to get shut, and then this here PC made one almighty unforgivable cock up, and of course handed to this sergeant on a plate all that he needed to begin orchestrating his demise. And it were right to do so, because, you know, the public were just not getting value for money from this fella. They were having terrible in public order situations, you know, where you need to lay hands on and start telling people how it's going to be, and if it ain't, you're going to get locked up, and if we're going to have a fight over it, then we'll have a fight, but my gang's bigger than yours, and at the end of it we'll probably both be battered and bruised, but you're getting locked up. You're getting locked up, pal, and it's as simple as that, and there ain't going to be no other outcome. But he were no good at that. He'd sooner walk round corner. Nice lad in all other respects, really nice lad, but just couldn't cut the mustard. But anyway, so this it was forever on this sergeant's radar. It was just lying in wait for him to make a right royal balls or something, and this particular day he did. He wanted to get off at, we're on early shift, 6 AM till 2 PM, and for whatever reason he wanted to get off at 2 PM. Well, I know what that reason was, but that's not for here. I've told Andy what it is. Hey, I'm not going to mention it on here, but he wanted to get off at 2 o'clock for a reason. But at about 1 o'clock, 1:30, he got sent to this here job, where somebody had stolen something, shall we say, from a certain retail outlet in the city. And the fella had rung police to say, and the fella's still here, the fella that's nicked this stuff is still on the premises. Golden opportunity to feel a collar for anybody that. But of course this particular poor PC happened to be on his beat. So he couldn't dodge it. He was out corner and he had to go. Sure to show when he gets there. Proprietor of the retail outlet says that fella there has just stolen XYZ from me and put it in his car outside. An absolute bang on job, sweet job. You know, caution the fella, lock him up, search the car, recover the property, get a statement from the complainant. And maybe back then, you know, a job like that, you could have handed it to CID. If you'd wanted to get a flyer, you could have just gone to CID and said, oh, I've got this job and I'm not right comfortable with it, and can you take it on? And a lot of times they would. But that'd have taken him an hour or two, and he needed to get off for 2 o'clock, so basically he cuffed the job. Hey, That were parlance back in the day, cuffing a job, knocking it, basically just not dealing with it. So I think basically said to this fella, oh, it's a bit sketchy, you're the only witness, and this fella's got no previous convictions, and they're in a power search and seize this car and its contents and one thing. Oh, absolute bollocks, just complete smokescreen. Anyway, eventually just leaves the job, just walks off. This bloody fella that's nicked this gear sat there must have surely thought his number were up when copper walks in full uniform, and then copper disappears in at sunset. Bloody hell, must have thought all his birthdays had come at once. Anyway, word of this got back to this here sergeant, of course. Oh, and it were a gift. So obviously this cop gets formally disciplined, and of course when you get disciplined there has to be an inquiry by what was then called D&C, Discipline and Complaints, later to be called Professional Standards Department. But it was D&C back then. But while that complaint were ongoing, I think the sergeant had got it into his head that he'd save him a load of work and get this fella to resign, this copper to resign. So what he did, oh, it must have been hell for this lad, but like I say, he deserved it. He was the author of his own demise. What the sergeant did was, he gave this PC certain points when he's on duty that he's got to make right across the division, right across the city centre, different points that he had to make on the hour. And don't think about missing one of these points, lad, because me or one of the other sergeants will be at one or more of them, assign your pocketbook. So I need you to be on this street at this time, this street at that time, this street, right through for his total 8-hour tour of duty. Only thing what? Bloody hell, Linford Christie had struggled to get to him, between some of them. And all you could see for weeks on end was this poor lad with his helmet under his arm, full steam, legging it between these points where he had to be. It absolutely destroyed him. And of course, of the three vehicles that would have been on patrol in the division back then, 2 cars and a personnel carrier, 3 vehicles, any one of which could have given him a lift and made life a bit easier for him, but of course they would thereby have incurred the same wrath, wouldn't they? So nobody was for helping him, because, you know, like his meal break, it was structured so he couldn't even get back to Nick for his meal break. He had to like neck a banana while he was legging between one point and next. Of course, he put his ticket in. So it's just, there's that old expression, isn't there? There's more than one ways of skinning a cat. And I think after 2 or 3 weeks, he saw the writing on the wall, put his ticket in, probably saved a lot of public money in so doing, and actually the right outcome. But you never get away with that now. I mean, straight away some bloody snowflake, some livid individual would want to label it bullying, wouldn't they? So anyway, I understand that this officer went on to do other things which were far more suited to his skill set. So all's well that ends well. Anyway, enough of that. I'm just going to let you enjoy this beautiful ride through the North York Moors, now towards the coast. I may or may not speak to you again on this video, but if I don't, I wish you safe riding, and ask you if you'll please, if you're not already subscribed, if you would subscribe to the channel and thereby help me enormously in continuing to produce content like this. So please, don't be shy, don't cost you a penny, not now, not ever. One click, one tap, done, subscribe, and I'll be eternally grateful. So yeah, if I don't speak to you again, see you on the next one. I'll see you. There's the sea, folks. The North Sea. Whoa!